Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. We've just seen the very first edition of Zuffa Boxing held at the UFC Apex, headlined by Callum Walsh versus Carlos Aampo. We are going to talk about all the boxing action, but if you are new, please do consider hitting that subscribe button, liking the video, leave all your thoughts about what we discussed in the comments today. And we're going to start the video off with some breaking news. Opetaia has announced that he will be making his Zuffa boxing debut March 8th at the UFC Apex. Now, he didn't name an opponent, but following his interview backstage, he was seen doing a face-off with the WBC Cruiserweight champion Noel Mikaelian, and Tasman Fighters even posted something on Instagram saying Opetaia goes head-to-head with Noel Mikaelian in a once-in-a-generation showdown for the IBF, WBC, and Ring Magazine World Championship on Zuffa Boxing. 3 world titles, no politics, no protecting belts, just the best fighting the best. This isn't just a fight, this is history demanding a winner. Now, I do question whether this is a promo for March 8th or if this is a promo for later in the year. The only reason I question it is I have no doubt that Opetaia is going to take on Noel Mikaelian. It's just whether does that fight happen. A unification bout, Opetaia versus Noel Mikaelian for 3 belts at the UFC Apex in front of 900 fans. That is a bit of a question. This fight deserves a bigger stage than that in my opinion. Although it's streamed on Paramount Plus, this deserves to be on a Riyadh season or a ring card. So I wouldn't be surprised if Opetaia's next opponent is just somebody to introduce him to Zuffa Boxing, introduce him to his first fight in the States, and then we see him take on Noel Mikaelian at a later date. But again, you know what? If they took this fight at the Apex, they take this fight at the Apex, Opetaia will not care. He just wants the fight. He just wants the belt. It could be in front of 1 fan, could be in front of 90,000. It doesn't make a difference. I just think it does deserve to be on that bigger stage. But if it comes March 8th, it comes March 8th. We'll all be there to watch. Let's talk about today's card, though. All right, let's talk about just the 3 fights that were on the main card. We'll start off with Julian Rodriguez versus Kane Sandoval. A very, very tough fight. Close fight. Sandoval really applying the pressure on the front foot for majority of that fight. But although he had the forward pressure, although he was sort of engaging most of the activity within the fight, I feel like in every exchange, Julian Rodriguez was getting the better of him. He was moving around. He wasn't allowing Sandoval to get too close, and he was able to pick him off and counterpunch more effectively with better skill and more power. And I think he dominated the fight, in my opinion. And although Sandoval did have that front foot pressure, if you don't do anything with that front foot pressure, if you don't land those good punches that Rodriguez did, you really can't win the fight. The outcome to that fight was Julian Rodriguez winning 99-91, 99-91, 98-92. Misael Rodriguez defeated Austin Deander via retirement at the end of the 4th round. That was one-way traffic from start to end. Rodriguez was all over him, and Deander goes into the corner, tells the doctor that he is having double vision, and obviously the doctor will call a stop to that fight. But a very good win for Misael Rodriguez. Now let's get to Callum Walsh versus Carlos Aampo, because as much as it was about the debut for Zuffa Boxing, which we will talk about in the short term and long term at the end of the video, but in terms of Callum Walsh versus Carlos Aampo, another fight where you've watched Callum Walsh and you've been left wanting more. You've just, we all know how good he is at 24 years of age. We know how promising he is as a fighter. This was a new weight class. He had a new trainer in his corner, so you've got to take into contention all of that. But it was another fight where I'm left there looking at Callum Walsh and saying, I wish we saw more. I wish we got more from you. All right, Carlos Aampo came in, and for me, he offered nothing. He barely scraped winning a round. The official scorecards were 98-90, 98-90, 97-91. In that was Walsh being dropped in round 6, and Aampo deducted a point for low blows in the 9th. Now, we are going to talk about that Walsh drop in case you haven't watched the fight. But yeah, you know what, we'll start with that, because it was basically the only bit of work that Aampo did in that whole fight. And even still, we looked at Walsh hitting the floor in the 6th, getting a count, and Walsh should probably still say won that round, because the knockdown was, although it is a knockdown, his glove touched the canvas after being hit. The punch was more of a push in the back. There wasn't really anything that hurt or did any damage. It was more catching Walsh off guard. He trips over a little bit, slips over a little bit with that push in the back and hits the canvas. And unfortunately, he gets a count and loses a point. But in no way, shape or form was he in danger in that round, nor was he in danger in any other round. I thought he started so well. I thought the first round he came out with a clear game plan. There was heaps of talk about, what Errol Spence and Tim Tszyu did to Aampo in the first round. If you catch him cold, it'll be a quick night. And Callum Walsh came out firing and unloaded a whole lot of clean punches on Aampo, none of which put him to the canvas, none of which looked like they really hurt him. And that sort of made clear what the fight was going to be, because it was one-way traffic from start to finish. It was Walsh that was applying all the pressure. It was Walsh that was landing all the clean punches. Not a lot of jab work tonight, which was interesting. A lot of just big power punches, a lot of which weren't set up. And even though they weren't set up, they were still getting in clearly to the body, to the head. It was one-way traffic. And like I said, Aampo really offered zero in that fight. And that's sort of where my criticism comes in for Callum Walsh. When you're in there against somebody that's offering nothing, somebody that has been susceptible to a weak chin, especially in the early rounds. I mean, we're talking about round 1 knockout against Errol Spence, a round 1 knockout against Tim Tszyu, and anytime he gets in there with a high-level opponent, he has lost. And I look at Callum Walsh and saying, this isn't an Aampo from 3 or 4 years ago. This is an Aampo that was in a dogfight against Sebastian Fundora, did get knocked out twice in a short amount of time. And could we have not seen you, when Aampo's not offering anything throughout the fight, he's not applying pressure, it wasn't a dogfight, it was one-way traffic, how come you weren't able to solve the puzzle tonight to get a knockdown, win that fight even more convincingly than you did? Really hurt Aampo. I know Aampo's face was a mess and everything else, and if you are a big Callum Walsh fan, then you are going to stick up for your boy, but the reason I'm so critical is because I can see that prospect in Callum Walsh. I can see what a good fighter he can become, but there is still these question marks, the same question marks we had after Fernando Vargas, a fight that I was really disappointed in Callum Walsh because he was put co-main. It was really your time to put your best foot forward and show just how good you are. It didn't happen on the night. You think, all right, well, this is your chance. You've clearly been picked an opponent where you can knock him out, all right? And once again, by the 7th or 8th round, it was dominance by Walsh, but nothing that was real captivating. He didn't make new fans tonight. It was a good performance. It was a solid performance. It was a one-sided performance, but it wasn't that one that catches our eye and says, I have to go and watch Callum Walsh the next time he fights. And when you're 24 years of age, when you are vying for big belts, when you are one of the faces of Zuffa boxing, that's what they want to see. And I think that's why we saw Carlos Aampo as the opponent, but we just didn't get that performance. And when I look at Walsh, I think, could you not have used a bit of jab tonight just to have set up your punches? When you are throwing big power punches, but they're telegraphed, they're a lot easier to take than the ones that are sneaky, that you don't see coming. And you'll hear lots of boxers talk about that, saying the ones that hurt the most are the punches you don't see coming. And I feel like Aampo, although he ate them all right, he saw those big telegraph punches, all right? Although they got through the guard and Aampo showed zero defense, he saw those punches and none of them really hurt him tonight. And, he couldn't hurt Fernando Vargas. This is now the 3rd fight in a row. I know there is a round 5 technical unanimous decision in the mix, but his last 3 fights all have gone to a decision. He's been unable to secure knockdowns. He's been unable to secure a knockout. And in his last 3 fights, the only knockdown that's really happened is him getting dropped to the canvas. So I'm only critical because I do see what Dana White will see. I do see what everybody else sees, that Callum Walsh is a very, very good boxer. I do just question, why was he landing clean punches tonight from round 1 to round 10? Like clean, big hitting punches at a new weight class in middleweight, and he was unable to startle or hurt Carlos Aampo, someone that we've seen get knocked out twice. All right? They are my questions for Callum Walsh. In terms of the performance, I mean, what he did good, yeah, he outboxed him. It was clinical. It was one-sided. It wasn't a real contest. Callum Walsh asserted just how dominant he can be, his control of the ring, his timing. All right, it's all there. We can all see it. There is just these few things that you're going to say. I think when Callum Walsh goes back to the drawing board, a bit like he did after Fernando Vargas, he's going to have a lot of criticism for himself, similar to the stuff that I'm saying here today. And I say it out of a place of, I think this guy has got every bit of talent that you'd want in a fighter. I think if he can sharpen up his punches, get a little bit more power in those punches, work with his new trainer who's clearly developing a new style with him that is less jab dependent, that is low guard holding, that is power punch, that is searching for that knockout, that's searching for that one clinical punch, he will have success, but that will come with time. I do get that it is a new trainer. It's not a distant trainer. It is the same people in the same gym, just different guys in your corner. It is a new weight class. Obviously, this new Zuffa boxing doesn't have that super welterweight. It is middleweight or it's welterweight, which is very interesting because we only have 8 weight classes instead of close to 20. But yeah, in terms of Callum Walsh, that would be my analysis of tonight. And another night where I'm just left wanting a little bit more. You know, if he could have polished that fight off with a round 7, round 8 knockout, it would have been a perfect performance. And I would have really had nothing wrong to say. I think going to the decision, you know, tiring a little bit in the later stages and not really putting your mark on it with a knockdown or a knockout did hurt the performance, but it was clinical. It was very one-sided. In terms of Zuffa boxing, obviously it was their first event. It's going to get better as they go. It's still odd for me, isn't it? Like Zuffa boxing wants to be a huge entity, and like any huge entity, they have to start off small. They have to start off somewhere, and just seeing a boxing event with some of these names performing in front of 900 people is weird. Obviously, for a very long time, there was the war between UFC and the war between boxing. Which one was better? Who's getting paid more? What's this? What's that? Who's this? Who's this? And whatever else. And tonight you see a boxing event held at the UFC Apex with Dana White sitting right there. You see Alex Pereira and all these UFC stars in and around a boxing event. So it is new. It is different. Keep hearing about this talk of a Zuffa belt. Dana White said that is going to come in the future, if and when, we don't know. If you are a fan of Power Slap, it's probably the closest thing that you can sort of go off. You know, that's another one that split off from the UFC, and you know they have their Power Slap belts in a few different weight divisions. Some weight divisions, I don't know whether they even have a Power Slap belt yet, but they've got the few champions, and a lot of them are sort of 2 years in, 3 years in, fighting the same people over and over again. And that's the problem that you might have with Zuffa boxing and bringing in a belt is repetition of fights, because Zuffa boxing doesn't have a huge roster, or else you're going to be throwing Callum Walsh in there with, you know, unknown names or people that really aren't deserving of a title shot yet because they don't have that roster, they don't have that name yet. So I do think that'll be a thing that comes in the future. But in terms of tonight, I thought every fight was very entertaining. And that's all you can ask for one of these events is, are the fights close? Are they engaging? Are they exciting? And I think every fight offered that. The only one that probably was a bit one-sided was that Michelle Rodriguez one. Deanda wasn't in it at all. And the main attraction, Carlos Aampo, was nowhere near it at all. But everything besides that, you know, the early prelims, the first fight on the main card was very close. It was a very good night of boxing. And yeah, it still leaves you with a lot of questions of what the future holds, but I thought a very successful night for the first Zuffa boxing event. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm out of here, guys. See ya.